Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCullum, and I'm here today at Morphy's with an extremely cool machine gun. This is a Soviet RP-46, and I think this is actually the first one that I've ever gotten my hands on that's intact and original, and this one is in gorgeous condition. So, there's a couple things that we need to talk about on this, like what is it, and where did it come from, and why did it exist, and then more importantly, where did they go? But we'll talk about that at the end. So, to start, the DP. This is the Degtyarev pulymet. It's Degtyarev's machine gun. It's adopted in 1926 as the first Soviet standard light machine gun, and it's most recognizable for its pan magazine, big round dinner plate thing on top of the gun that holds 47 rounds. This was a remarkably good machine gun. It was also a very cost-effective machine gun to manufacture. They were cheap. The Russians made a ton of them during World War II. In fact, they modernized it during World War II from the DP to the DPM, most importantly giving it a pistol grip, which carried over to this model. But at the end of World War II, the Soviet Union has a major shift in small arms, as do many countries. But the big thing for the Soviets is they're transitioning from a rifle cartridge to an intermediate cartridge. So the new infantry squad is going to be armed with AKs, SKSs, and for a machine gun, the RPD, which is a little belt-fed 7.62 by 39 gun. It's actually mechanically the same system as the Degtyarev. The D in RPD is the same as the D in DP or DPM. And then the Maxim guns are being replaced by SG-43 Goryunovs, but that's not that's a gun that has to be on a big mount. It's not a squad-level machine gun. And this shift in arms production leaves a gap in the middle of what if we need a machine gun that's got a little more hitting power than that 7.62 by 39 intermediate cartridge, but we also need something that's a little more mobile than trying to wheel around a Goryunov on its mount, the equivalent to the old Maxim heavy machine guns. The solution they come up with is to adapt the DPM to use belts. And they do so in a really clever way. This is one of the few times, almost in fact the only time I can think of, where adapting a magazine-fed gun to belt-fed after the fact, not designing it to work with both, but after the fact adapting it to belt-fed actually worked and was issued. So that's fundamentally what we have here. We have a DPM light machine gun converted to use belts. Now at the same time that they designed this belt feed adapter, which just clips onto the gun like a magazine. That's super cool. They also made a number of other small incremental improvements to the gun. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at this. I will show you all the design features, and then we'll take it apart and I'll show you how this cool thing works. I'm going to start us off here with a quick look at the markings. There aren't that many. Basically, we have a production date of 1948, which means this is a factory-built RP-46, not a conversion of a pre-existing Degtyarev. Serial number here, repeated there, and then we actually have a matching serial number on the belt feed adapter up here, along with a 1948 production date on it as well, and then a serial number on the barrel, which also matches, and this is barrel number 2. These guns were issued with 8 cans of ammo and 2 barrels, so the first barrel would have been marked with a 1, and this is barrel number 2. Now let's talk about this belt feed adapter. So what we have here is a mechanism that has dropped in place, locking in just like a magazine. We've got a dust cover on this side. This is the feed side. And to open this, what I'm going to do is actually pull the magazine catch, which is the rear sight protector here, back just slightly, and that allows this top cover to lift up. Here is our feed pawl. And then we have the feed hole right here. So what this is doing is presenting a cartridge from the belt into the exact same position that it would be presented from the magazine. So the gun underneath doesn't know the difference between being fed by the magazine and being fed by this belt-fed adapter. Now to actually make this thing work, we have this claw that comes out the bottom of the adapter. And when the bolt handle comes back, when it fires, you can see that it's going to grab this hook and it's going to pull this slide back to here. When you pull the trigger again and it goes forward, it grabs the front of this slide. So the feed mechanism is actuated by the bolt handle. It's a kludge. This is kind of in concept, this is pretty clunky, but darned if it doesn't actually work. So Let's take this off and we can get a closer look at it. To do that, we're going to pull the magazine release back, and then this is held in place by the charging handle. So I have to pull the charging handle into the middle so it can come out there, and then this just lifts off. So if I open this up, we have a couple of elements here. This feed slide going back and forth has a couple of elements in it. We've got this cammed track that's going to pull the belt in when it comes back, and then push it forward when it goes, or push it out when it goes forward. The most important feed element are these two little hooks. These grab the rim of a cartridge. When this goes forward, it snaps over the rim of a cartridge, and then when it comes back, it pulls that cartridge backwards out of the belt and then drops it into this feed slot. So you can see that on this side, we've got this little long metal finger that's connected to the hook, and that is flexible. So that allows this thing to flex in and out and snap around a cartridge. This one's fixed in place, but that one can bend just a little bit. So one of the most important elements of manufacturing this thing is to make sure you've got the right temper on this bit of steel so that it can flex, but it won't actually won't take a set. On the top here, we have a stop pawl, so this makes sure that the belt doesn't slip backwards. And then this is a feed spring. So this is positioned right over that feed slot. When the cartridge is all the way in the rearward position, this finger, spring-loaded finger, is what actually pushes it down into this feedway and then into the gun. Now, a couple other little elements here. We've got notches in the front where this hooks into the front magazine catch of the gun. We've got this ledge on the back where it's held in place by the rear magazine catch. If you pull that back, it allows you to either open the top cover, which you have to do to load a belt into it, although actually I think you could probably feed this through just by pushing the empty end of a belt through. And anyway, this allows you to either open it or remove the whole thing. And then we also have a carry handle. So one of the complaints about the Degtyarev in service is that it was a pretty awkward gun to actually carry around. So they added this handle to it. Now, you wouldn't really want to carry a Degtyarev by the magazine because that's a little bit on the flimsy side. So the handle is connected to this big lug on the bottom. When you fold the handle into position, that locks into this cutout in the barrel shroud. And so you're actually lifting the gun by the barrel shroud right there, which is a lot more stable. And that is an excellent transition for us to take a look at the elements that are changed from the DPM to the RP-46, aside from the belt feed system. Some of these are internal and some are external. We'll start with the ones we can see easily, and then as we take the gun apart, I'll show you more of them on the inside. So up first, this is the front magazine catch on a standard DP or DPM. The early ones were milled, the later ones were stamped and riveted in place like this. But what they've done on the RP-46 is make this bigger and stronger, and it's gone from 3 rivets to 4 rivets holding it in place. Obviously, this T-slot for the carry handle was added. Now, this is kind of a weird one to access. You can see there's a trap door, but it's held shut by the oiler bottle. So to get access to this, you push this in, and you actually lift the oiler bottle out of the back of the gun. By the way, if I open this up, it's not full of oil right now. I have a little brush in there. With that out, I can now pull this door open. You can see we've got a little latch there that is held closed by this hook. Then inside we have this cleaning kit. Pop that open it up. We've got a broken shell extractor, a pin punch, a bore brush, I think this is a chamber cleaning brush. Honestly, I'm not sure exactly what this is, except it allows you to get a cleaning brush into more places that are hard to get to in the gun. And then we have a general wrench and screwdriver that is used for all the rest of the disassembly that you would need on the gun. So that whole thing fits goes into this very specialized cleaning kit, back into the gun, and that is actually your handle for pulling it out. Okay, now let's start taking the gun apart. First thing we're going to do is remove the barrel. On the regular DP, there's just a standard little button. You push the button in, you can rotate the barrel, and on a set of interrupted threads, it will come out. On the RP-46, they secure the barrel a little better. So this is now the button, but this lever sits underneath it and prevents it from being pushed so that you can't accidentally remove the barrel if you don't need to. Instead, you have to lift that lever up, and then the lever will actually push the button for you and give you a lot of leverage on it in case it's gotten sticky or the gun's really hot. So that's kind of a cool mechanism unique to the RP-46. So I'm going to push that button in. By the way, you have to have the bolt carrier locked open in order to change the barrel, because otherwise the gas piston interferes with your gas block. Anyway, pushing the removal lever in, and then this just rotates up and comes out very nice and easily. Now we have a couple of differences on the barrel. First off, this is a much heavier profile barrel than the standard DP or DPM barrel. I don't have an example of one of those to show you side by side, but they made it a much heavier barrel so that it has better sustained fire capabilities, which certainly makes sense for a belt-fed version of the gun. Essentially, it's just a solid cylinder from the original, the back diameter, all the way out to the front. Same conical flash hider that you get on the regular guns. They also slightly scaled up the gas block. So there's your RP-46 gas block. This is a standard DP or DPM gas block. You can take this component out, but it's not adjustable. On the RP-46, they made a 3-position adjustable gas block. So what we have here are labels 1, 2, and 3. The gas block is currently in position number 2. People may think that I'm being excessive or hyperbolic or making jokes when I refer to Russian machine gun maintenance tools as a big hammer. Well, in this case, a big hammer is exactly how you adjust the gas setting for the RP-46 gas block. So if I want to move it from 2 over to the other side, I literally whack it with a hammer and it snaps into the next position and then the third and final position. So the way this actually works is with 3 slots that are increasingly large. That's 1, that's 2, that's 1, that's 2, that's 3. That little hole right there is the hole that comes out of the barrel. So gas pressure comes out there, and then it has to go into that big hole to push the piston, and it does so by traversing through one of these 3 little slots. So sort of the complicated part of this is if you want to use the hole, the gas has to go this direction right here. So if you want to use 2 or 3, you put the gas plug in this way and slide it to the appropriate depth. But if you want to use number 1 in the middle, you actually have to flip it around and put it in from this side so that the slot is correctly aligned right there between the gas port and the gas piston. Quick note before I take this apart further, this is actually the original sling for the RP-46, which is also really cool. They've got this wider section to hold the weight of what is a substantially heavier gun than the earlier DPM. All right, for our next step in disassembly, I'm going to take out the recoil spring, which means I want to have the gas piston forward and the spring relaxed. There's a little push button right here. I'm going to push that in, and then I can rotate this spring tube around 90 degrees, pull it out. There's the spring tube, and there's the recoil spring. This, by the way, if this seems like a weird kludge to have the spring coming out the back of the receiver above the buttstock here, that's because that was part of the DPM update. Originally, the recoil spring was wrapped around the gas piston. That led to problems of losing temper when you had too much shooting, so they retrofitted the guns and moved the recoil spring back here. Anyway, next step is to remove this. This is the screw that locks the upper and the lower together. That comes out like so. By the way, here's our one control. This is fire. That is safe. The original DPs had a grip safety on them. The DPM and the RP-46 instead have a manual safety, which is much better. The grip safety on the original DP is not. Now, this lower assembly is going to just pivot down and allow me to take the guts out of the gun. It is, however, very tight and requires application of Soviet machine gun adjustment tool. And there we go. Now I can get in here and pull out the gas piston, op rod, bolt carrier, and the whole bolt assembly. Now, at this point, there are a couple other improvements or modifications made to the RP-46 that I need to show you. So the gas tube here under the barrel shroud has been strengthened. You can see in particular at the front, there's a lot more material out here on the RP-46 than there is on the regular DP. All right, there was also a change made to the gas system. So this is an original DPM gas piston. This is a DPM gas plug, and you can see the piston nests on the outside, fully envelops the plug on the gas block. For the RP-46, they reversed that. So first off, there's a bit more material out here at the end of the gas piston, and now the gas piston fits inside the gas block here. And this is done to reduce the effect of fouling and to make the gun a bit more resilient. A similar change was actually made to the US BAR at one point. But as a result, where the RP-46 looks like it's just this top cover assembly here dumped onto the top of the gun, there are actually a substantial number of changes. For example, of course, you can't mount this if you don't have the cutout slot for that carry handle. You cannot interchange gas pistons or barrels between the DP and the RP-46 unless you do them both. In theory, the RP-46 could take a DPM gas piston as long as it also had a DPM barrel in it that had this style of gas block. And one other cool thing that I forgot about, the bipod legs now also carry the cleaning rod in 4 segments. So if I take this little button and push it down, I can pull this collar forward like so. And then I have 2 cleaning rod segments in the crimped sections of this bipod leg. I can do the same thing over here. That gets me 2 other segments. One of these is the end of the cleaning rod, and one of them has a pair of slots for a cleaning jag, or a cleaning patch. So you screw all 4 of these together, and you have a full-length cleaning rod, and they are all carried on the outside of the gun in the bipod legs. It's kind of cool. All right, and there is a completely field-stripped RP-46. I didn't get into the bolt and the lock work. It's the same as the regular DP. If you're curious about that, check out my video on the standard DP light machine gun. I'll link to it in the description text below. The RP-46 is adopted in 1946. This was a pretty quick thing to develop and adopt, and it goes into production, and it's pretty easy to produce because most of the core elements of this gun are already in production as the DPM anyway. And it gets put into service as a company-level machine gun. What's weird, though, is there's very little information on how they were actually used and what actually happened to them. So what we know is that the PK would replace the RP-46 as the company-level machine gun when it was adopted in 1961. And the PK is a fantastic gun, and it's been everywhere, and it's done everything, and it's an amazing machine gun. The RP-46 is very difficult to see in the historical record between 46 and 61, and then it almost just disappears. So a few of these do show up. You can find a few pictures of them here and there, but for the quantity that one really has to assume were manufactured, because it's so easy to convert existing DPMs to use this system, The Soviet Union was a big proponent of large-scale production of this sort of thing, but the guns just seem to disappear. So we don't see any significant big numbers of RP-46s being sent to other places as military aid. We know they were produced. China and North Korea both produced their own versions of, for their own production of the RP-46, presumably with Soviet military assistance in developing the plans. There are a few little differences, but they're the same system. But the Soviet ones just sort of disappear. And it's interesting that we haven't seen them really come out of arms depots. We haven't seen them surplus. They're very rare, even as parts kits here in the United States. We don't see pictures of them coming out of, for example, arms depots in Ukraine during the current Ukraine war. They just kind of go poof and disappear. So did they actually make a lot of them? Perhaps they only made a small number. Perhaps they were destroyed instead of being stockpiled, but that doesn't seem like a very Russian thing to do either. They were still stockpiling old Mauser 98s from World War II at this point. The idea that they would throw away honest-to-goodness machine guns seems odd. Anyway, we do know, of course, they were replaced by the PK in the 60s, which is a good thing. The PK is a far better gun than this. While this was effective, it was cheap, it's very clever, I think. It is not the world's most pleasant, greatest machine gun to shoot. This is a kind of rattly system. It's not soft shooting. The gun's still really kind of awkward to maneuver around. In particular, holding ammunition or supplying ammunition to an RP-46 is a really awkward thing because there is no mechanism to actually hold ammo on the gun. It ejects downwards, so you can't put an ammo box under it. The belt's going in one side, coming out the other. They literally just didn't have a system for holding ammo. You just put an ammo can on the ground next to the gun, and then it would tip over, and then the ammo gets dirty, and whatever, deal with it. So the PK was a much better system. But I would love to find out more about where all the RP-46s actually went and what happened to them. So hopefully one of these days we'll find out. In the meantime, it was very cool to get a chance to take a look at this one. Like I said, first one I've ever actually gotten a chance to handle myself, and it's a gorgeous example here at Morphy's. So big thanks to them. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.